Good morning. So did you all come just so you can get breakfast after this? Was that your motivation? Y'all, if I haven't eaten breakfast by now, so it's going to be your second breakfast this morning. So good morning. I'm excited to be here. Welcome to Atlanta, Georgia. This is a second home for me. I'm originally from New Jersey. Some of you have heard me speak. And I went from New Jersey to Atlanta and lived here for a little while. So I'm excited to be back in my second hometown. But I'm more excited to be talking to you all today on how to navigate, elevate, and accelerate your success as both managers and leaders. But before we get into that, let me give you a little bit of context of who I am. I'm seeing some familiar faces in the audience, and I know some of you know what you got yourself into this morning. But those of you who have never heard me speak, let me tell you what you got yourself into this morning. So I always tell people, full disclaimer, heads up, I am originally from New Jersey. How do you all feel about that? And you're like, okay, why are you telling me this? I'm telling you this because I live in Augusta, Georgia, and in Augusta, Georgia, they refer to me as the Yankee. And I didn't get it. I was like, I don't understand, why do you all call me that? And they say, well, it's because you're loud, you're aggressive. I'm like, whoa, assertive. And they say, you don't sugarcoat anything, you just tell us how it is, and you occasionally curse. And I'm like, God, because I'm from New Jersey. But then I quickly correct them. And I say, okay, you can call me a Yankee, but I'm actually a Yankee Belle. Because I've lived in the South now longer than I've lived in New Jersey, and you're gonna hear in my talking today that I say y'all, and if you hang out with me long enough, you see that I drink sweet tea, I'll eat grits, and so people get all kinds of confused, because they're like, okay, so she curses, she's loud, but she says y'all, it's because I'm a Yankee Belle, okay? I also think it's important for you to know that I am a mental health counselor by training. So I have a degree in professional counseling and I care about people a whole lot, but I also have a doctorate degree in business. So everything that I'm talking to you about today is kind of this hybrid where I want to help you maximize the success of your business through your people. So I'm both people and business, okay? And last thing I want you to know about me is that I am a recovering academic. I was a business school professor for many years. I was a dean at a business school, and I got burned out, and I said I want to do something else. And so I do occasionally get a little academic, but we're going to keep it light and fun. But know that you can ask me any question you want to ask me, either during the program or during breakfast, because I'm a recovering academic. Just be careful what you ask for, okay? So we good? You have a sense of who I am and kind of how I'm going to be sharing info with you today? Okay, good. All right, so listen, I have you here this morning for about an hour, a little under an hour. And I'm going to be giving you so much information. You're going to feel like you're sitting there and I'm just like hosing you down with a fire hose. Just sit back and just soak it in. Because I'm going to be giving you a lot of different nuggets, and my goal is for each and every one of you to walk out of this space here today with at least 1, 2, or 3 that you can apply right away to help you be a better leader and manager. And so let me ask you, how often do you find yourself thinking about the future? So show of hands, give me a 1 if you never think about the future, a 2 if you occasionally think about the future, and a 3 if you're thinking about it all the frickin' time. Okay, this is good. I'm not seeing a lot of 1s. This is good, because here's the thing. When you're thinking about how you can be the best manager and leader and how you can maximize the success of the business, you must be thinking about the future. You must be thinking about the future, because the future is going to be so different than anything we've ever experienced in the past. And I can stand up here today and I can talk to you for an hour on how the work and how you're doing your business is going to be different in the future, but that's not what we're talking about today. Because I can even stand up here and talk to you for a whole hour on how the workforce, if you haven't already noticed, the workforce is going to be so different than anything you've ever experienced. But we're not talking about that either. And I could even stand up here and talk to you about how the workplace, where you do your work, is going to be so different. But we're not talking about that either. If you want to talk about that, we could talk about it over breakfast. Because what we're talking about today is you as a leader and manager navigating this future landscape of business. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. Everything that you've ever known about management and leadership 80% of it is not going to be relevant moving forward. The business landscape that we're navigating moving forward is going to be so different that the old school or the best practices that you have had and that have worked in the past are not going to work moving forward. And so let's take a pulse. I don't want to stand here and assume that you know what I'm talking about when I'm talking about this future landscape, right? And so let's just make sure we're all on the same page. So we know that here in America, the workforce is aging. We are bracing for this graying tsunami, this tidal wave of folks that are going to retire any given day. And the baby boomers, which are the oldest generation in the workforce right now, they're only supposed to be about 12% of our workforce, but they're 33% of our workforce right now. And thank goodness they are. Because in case you haven't noticed, we're experiencing a massive workforce shortage right now. And thank goodness these folks are working longer than the previous generations because they're backfilling our needs. But man, oh man, oh man, when they leave, and they will eventually leave, we don't know when. I thought for sure they were all going to hang it up when the pandemic hit, and some of them did retire, and they went down to 31%. But they got bored, and they're now back in the workforce and got rehired, and they're now back up to 33%. But when they do retire, your organizations are going to feel a massive leadership gap, because whether they serve in a leadership role or not, they are leaders in your organization, and you're going to feel that gap, okay? Show of hands, who here in the audience was born between 1965 and 1980? Show of hands. Ooh, okay. We're the problem. I'm one of them. This is Gen X. We are the hardest generation to work with and work for. We are workaholics. We work until the work gets done. We have a hard time understanding why everybody else is not working as hard as we are. When we leave at night, we're the last vehicle in the parking lot, and we're pissed because we're like, where is everybody? And we go home and we're still angry about it. We wake up the next morning still angry about it because we're working so hard, and why is everybody else not working as hard as we are? And so then you come into work and you're the first vehicle in the parking lot, and now you're like really mad, and you're like looking around and you're like, God, does anybody work here? And you're so mad, you go into the office, you think to yourself, you're gonna quit today. And this is who you're gonna say, heck with you, I'm done with you. No, I like you. And you even maybe go write yourself a resignation letter because you're like, I'm going to resign today, and you print it out, and then you put it through the shredder. But my Gen Xers, do you quit? No, you don't quit. You just get angry and you just keep pushing through your day, right? And my Gen Xers, we have an extreme sense of urgency to us. We want stuff done now. We want stuff done our way because our way is the best way, because we have figured out how to get the most work done in the shortest period of time. And many of us are serving in management and leadership roles, and we're the problem. Organizations come at me and they like throw money at me, and they're like, Melissa, please, can you please help us with these damn millennials? We don't know how to hire them. We don't know how to fire them. We don't know how to get them to get dressed to come to work. Like, please help us. And do you want to know where I spend all my time? These folks right here. Now, some of you are like, okay, free breakfast or not, you're losing me here. I'm out of here. Like, you're saying I'm the problem? Yeah, you're the problem because you are motivated by career success and productivity and getting things done, and you also tend to have a very command and control management style. Do as I say, because I said so, because that's the way we've always done it. I call it the Heisman generation. You all know the Heisman? We're like, eh. Because the young folks come up to us with ideas and we're like, eh. Well, hey, why do I have to come to work on time? Hey, why do we have it set up this way? We don't even let the word why come out of their mouth. We're like, meh. Now, but here's the thing. We're not only the problem, we're the solution. And it's going to take every single one of us in this generation to turn the ship around, to lead our organizations to be successful, and they can't do it without us. But here's the thing. We were 28% of the workforce last year. We're 21% of the workforce this year, and we're only going to be 18% of the American workforce by the end of this year. Where are we going? So this generation, if you think about it, we're anywhere from 45 to 60-ish. Many people in this generation are burned out. They're workaholics, they're tired, they're the sandwich generation, they have aging parents, they have kids, they're tired, they've put so much effort into this. And so many of them are hanging it up to either retire early by their early to mid 50s and they're figuring out financially how to do it, or they're leaving their jobs to go do their own job, to start their own business on the side. Because they're like, you know what, if I'm gonna work 40, 50, 60, 70 hours a week, I might as well just go work for myself. And then we have this next generation, the M word, the millennials. Who in here was born between 1981 and 1996? Raise your hand. Yes, for real? Okay, those of you who just raised your hand, how many of you were in high school when 9/11 happened? Okay, you guys are more Gen X, let's be honest. But listen, this generation is the best generation in the workforce right now. The Gen Xers are like, what? Okay, you really lost me now. Yeah, no, they're the best generation in the workforce right now, but they look like this. Because a lot of them are bored and they're frustrated with how the older folks are doing things. And so this generation, it's kind of interesting when you think about them in the job, you have two camps. You have the folks over here who are going to have 6, 7, 8 careers and employers throughout their lifetime. They start in one area and they try it out and then they don't like it, so they quit, and they don't even tell you they're quitting, they just don't come back. And then they'll go and they'll try something else, and then they don't like that, and then they're gonna go live on a homestead and raise their own animals and farm, and then they realize they miss their electricity, so then they come back and wanna be a teacher because they wanna change lives. They're gonna have 6, 7, 8, 9 careers throughout their lifetime, okay? And then you have the camp over here. They're never going to have a career and they're never going to be loyal to one employer. They have a job, a J-O-B job. And that job pays the bills. That job lets them live life because life starts when they get off of work. They don't want work interfering with their life. They don't want to work weekends. They don't want to work mandatory overtime. And the minute that you tell them, they don't want to participate in mandatory fun. They don't want to consider you family. They don't want you as family. They're your coworkers. And the minute that you force that on them, they're going to peace out. Now, my college students told me, Dr. Furman, this isn't cool anymore. They taught me deuces. Do y'all know deuces? They told me I had to practice. They said I had to stand on the side, I had to pucker my lips, and I can do one hand or I can do two. And they're like, deuces, peace. So if they come into work and they have command and control, Gen X telling them, you must do this. And when they're like, but why? And they're like, because I said so and that's the way we've always done it. They're like, all right, peace. And they quit and they don't even tell you they're quitting. They just don't come back to work the next day. And a lot of them are bored, they're frustrated. And this generation are huge disruptors. They're thinking about all these new and different ways of doing things. Now, here's what I'm going to tell my Gen Xers. You need to get out of the way. You need to clear the runway for these millennials. They have great ideas. They're very innovative. They use technology. They're very tech savvy. But when I tell you you have to clear the runway, you can't just clear the runway and get out of the way. No, Gen X. You need to make sure they have a reliable airplane. You have to make sure they have a flight path. You have to make sure you may even have to put bumpers on the runway. Because they have great ideas, but they don't have the professional and emotional maturity to be able to execute on them. And man, oh man, when you put these folks in management and leadership roles, they have all these great ideas, but they're having a really hard time managing and leading people who are older than them. They're having a really hard time working the hours of a manager and leader. They're having a hard time correcting behaviors because they have a different mindset. And then we have the youngest generation in our workforce. This is Gen Z. They're roughly, 15 to 24. Do I have any of you in here? Really? Hey! You guys are my favorite. You're for sure my favorite. Which, let me back up. I love that millennials are here at this event because a lot of times the younger generations don't see value in coming to an event like this. This is very old school. They're like, I don't need to network. I don't need to go to an expo. And they do, and they get so much out of this. And I love that there's so many millennials here, so thank you for coming. And then my Gen Zers, man, you guys are freaking awesome. You are my favorite in the whole wide world, and they are the offspring of Gen X. They are not millennials. They think very differently, they behave very differently. They care a whole lot about security and stability. Their Gen X parents beat it into them. You better get to work on time. You better be dressed appropriately. You better shake hands, make eye contact. So they're showing up in the workforce very, very like ready to go. But here's what's frustrating. Our guidance counselors are telling these Gen Zers when they were in middle school, you have to pick a career in middle school. Those careers that they expose them to in middle school don't even exist by the time they graduate high school. And unfortunately, the trades aren't being pitched to them, which actually research just came out last week that the younger Gen Zs, more and more of them want to pursue the trades. Because they're like, what's it, what 4-year degree? That's BS. What am I getting out of that? All I get out of it is student loans. I can go be a welder, I can go work in HVAC, I can go work in manufacturing and make 3 times the amount of money, which is true, for sure. And I just wish we could get the school systems on board to start pushing the trades rather than telling them, oh, you have to go to a 4-year school and you have to pursue the STEM areas. No, you don't. You can go be a mechanic. You can go work with your hands and make a great living, and Gen Z is catching on to that, which is awesome. But here's the thing about Gen Z. They're showing up into your workplace very confident, and they're like, I got this because their Gen X parents beat it into them. And here's what I'm going to tell you. Give them a problem, take away their phone and technology, and see how they do. What we're finding with this generation is they're showing extremely low levels of resiliency and grit because they really haven't been given an opportunity to fail. And it's because the Gen X parents are like, I don't have time for them to fail. We don't have time. I'll just do their science fair project for them just so they don't fail. This is, by the way, why Crocs are so big, because I believe that Gen X didn't have time for their kids to tie their shoes, and they're like, just put some Crocs on, let's go. We don't have time. So this generation has a very, very different mindset. And I want you to look at this screen behind me as I'm still talking about this landscape that we're navigating, and I want you to find the matchstick that best represents you. Where are you at on here? Because here's the thing, when I talk to my audiences, most people are on the far right side and they're experiencing really high levels of burnout. Burnout is that you're tired, you're stressed, you've had prolonged exposure to psychological stress and you're freaking fried. Like your road rage is worse, you're snapping at the dog, the old knee injury is back, and you're just like grumpy. You're like functioning right at your tipping point and the slightest little thing has you bubbling over. And here's what I'm gonna tell you. If you're on the left-hand side behind me, let's get through next week in the election and let's just see how burned out people are based on what we're gonna experience next week, right? So I tell that to you because as a leader and manager, can you manage across those generations? Can you lead across those generations? And do you know how to lead and manage people who are burned out? Your customers are burned out, your clients are burned out, your employees are burned out, you're burned out. Everybody's like throwing the F-bomb around and like throwing their keys because people are burned out. And then we know that business is moving at a rapid pace. I don't know if you've looked around, but man, every day something is changing, and what I'm telling people is the only thing constant in the future is change. Do you know how to lead change? Do you know how to manage in an environment that every day it's gonna look different and you're gonna have to do things differently? And what I'm telling people is that if you just think you can take the same old way that you've always done business, the same way you've always led and the same way you've always managed, and you just tweak it and you're like, I just need to tweak it, I'll just change this, I'll just change this, it's not gonna work. Okay, so I give the example of a 1950s truck. Now, I used to say you have to burn the house down, like stop, from a tweaking standpoint, like stop tweaking the windows, stop putting on the new roof, just burn the whole freaking house down. Just burn it down and build it fresh up. But I live in Georgia, and the Historic Society people got very offended by me telling people to burn houses down, so I had to come up with a new example. So, I'm married to a car guy. So I came up with this example of a car guy, and this is a 1950s truck, okay? And we all know this 1950s truck, and this 1950s truck makes us smile in America, right? Like, we want this truck in our parades. We take pictures for our holiday cards in front of this truck. Like, this truck makes us feel good. And so I want you, instead of thinking of your organization as the historic house, think of this organization, your business, as this truck. And many of you, your businesses may have been around since 1950, if not longer. So picture this truck. You're solid. You're a symbol in your community. You're America. Like this truck symbolizes that, right? Bulletproof. And this is the dashboard of a 1950s truck. So I went to my husband and I said, hey babe, can I cut into the dashboard of this 1950s truck? Because if I can't use this as my example. And he was like, yes, but you better never cut into the dashboard of a 1950s truck. I'm like, I don't even know how to use a freaking tool. You think I can like cut into it? But okay. So what I want you to do is I want you to think about your business as this 1950s truck, and I want you to think about how it has evolved over time. And so here we are, 1950s truck. In the 1980s, you know, we had the 8-track in this truck, if you had one, and you wanted a cassette player to be relevant. So you just made a minor tweak and you took the 8-track out and you put the cassette player in, done. But you made no changes to the truck. Same wheels, same transmission, same engine. So think about this as your business. You didn't change anything about the way that you do business. You just made one minor tweak. And then came the 1990s and we all wanted a CD player, right? And I know with Gen X in here, y'all remember the portable CD players that you used to hold? And what would happen when you hit the button? See, you totally are not a millennial if you remember the CD player that we were holding. When you hit a bump, what happened? You went all the way back to the beginning of the song. Like hashtag first world problems. My Gen Zs in here, you guys have no idea what we had to deal with when our CD player bumped back to the beginning of the song. Do y'all remember the big binders? Like we had all these CDs and it was cool. So what did you do? You just simply took out the cassette player, put in the CD player, and you're like done. And do you remember it had the removable face off the CD player? Because we were afraid people were going to steal this insertable CD player. Did any of you live in communities where people were stealing CD players out of your vehicles? Because like in New Jersey, they just stole the whole car. Forget the CD player, they just stole the whole car, right? So you just made a minor tweak. You took out the cassette player, easy enough, put in the CD player, we're done. But you made no changes to the truck, okay? Then came the 2000s and we all wanted a GPS. So what did we do? We bought a Garmin, we licked the suction cup, put it on the dash, plug that into what? Do y'all remember? Cigarette lighter. Gen Zs, have you guys ever seen a vehicle with a cigarette lighter in it? What else did we have with the cigarette lighter? What went right next to it? The ashtray. We had ashtrays in our vehicles back then. So here we had the GPS, lick the suction cup, put it on the dash, we're good. No major changes to the truck. No major changes to the business. We just kept tweaking to be relevant. And then came the 2000s, like early to mid 2000s, and this is when there may have been some disruption in your businesses. Maybe this is when you went to an electronic invoicing system, or you started having a portal, or you started using SAP or a software tracking system, and this was kind of disruptive. And so you didn't make a change to the truck per se, but you made a pretty significant change to the dashboard because you had to. Because the Garmin was falling off, the CD player's face kept breaking off, so you made a significant change. Now, here we are in 2024, and I'm hoping you all know what this is in the bottom right-hand corner. This is the new 2023 Ford Lightning. Does anybody have one? Of course not, because you work in construction. Why would you have one? No, I'm just kidding. This is the new 2024 Ford Lightning electric vehicle, and whether you like electric or not, whether you believe in electric or not, it is here to stay. I mean, the fact that the big auto manufacturers have completely put their tokens and put all of it in one basket and they've changed over their assembly lines, y'all, it's here to stay. It may not be the only thing, but it's here to stay. And so I went to my car guy husband and I said, babe, can I take this 1950s truck and make it modern and relevant and convert it to electric? He said, no. I was like, babe, are you sure? And he's like, now I need to tell you, my husband designs electric vehicles for a living. Pretty credible source. They're golf cars, but close enough, okay? So he was like, babe, no. And I was like, are you sure? Like, I can't just take the engine out and like put the batteries in. He's like, no, because have you, any of you ever opened the trunk of an electric vehicle? What's under there? Nothing. It's a frunk. It's a front trunk. There's nothing under the hood of an electric vehicle. So he says, babe, no. And I kept pushing him, and then I got a 2-hour lecture from a mechanical engineer as to why this can't be done. And this is what I heard. This is probably not what he said, but what I heard is, you can't. Like, there is no engine in an electric vehicle. There's 4 individual motors that drive each wheel. I don't know if this is what he said, but this is what I heard. And he's like, no. And so I started thinking about it, and I'm like, okay, this is equivalent to leadership and management and how you run your business. Are you the 1950s truck, or are you the future Ford Lightning? Now, 2 Christmases ago, the day after Christmas, Jay Leno posted a picture of a 1968 truck that he converted from gas to electric. And my LinkedIn was blowing up. People were like, you're gonna have to come up with a new example. And I went to my husband and I was like, babe, you failed me. Like, you told me it couldn't be done. And he was like, it can be done, but you're gonna need the money that Jay Leno has to be able to do it. And actually the kits are getting more and more affordable now. He says, or they modified a gas vehicle to look, or they modified an electric vehicle to look like a gas truck. And I love that he said that, because I want you to think about that with your businesses. You as a manager, as a leader. Do you want to be that 1950s truck that's old school, okay? Not modern, not relevant. You could be the Ford 2023 Lightning that's modern and relevant, or you could be Jay Leno's truck, where you are still an electric vehicle, where you're modern and relevant, but you've been customized to look like the old school one. So think about that with your businesses, and think about your management style, your leadership approach, and is it relevant? Think about your businesses, the way that you do business, your policies, your structure, your leadership approaches, your hiring practices, your invoicing, everything that you do. Is it modern and relevant, or is it the 1950s truck? Okay? The younger generations want to know why. Why do you do invoicing this way? Why are our shifts set up this way? Why is the line built this way? Why? And if you say to them, because I said so, or that's the way we've always done it, Heisman, they're going to peace out. They're going to peace out as your customer. They're going to peace out as your employee. They're going to peace out as your investors. They want to know that you are modern and relevant, and there's a reason behind what you're doing, because rules without reason breeds resentment. If you have teenagers at home, you want to write that down. Rules without reason breeds resentment. And so what I'm telling people is this is how you need to lead and manage your organizations. You need to lead it around these 4 things, okay? So first one being, you have to care about your people. Your customers, your employees, the team members that you're managing and leading, they need to know that you care about them. And now Gen X is sitting here going, oh, do I really have to care about them? Or can I just like pretend like I care about them? Because I don't have time to care, Melissa. No, you need to genuinely care about them. And then they're like, okay, can we not hire a chief caring officer around here? Can we not just make it one person's job to do all the caring, because I don't care? You check it at the door. Absolutely not. They need to know that you care about them. Okay, number 2, we statistically do not have enough human beings in America to serve your workforce needs. We can't have the boomers staying forever. They're going to eventually have to retire. Which, by the way, side note, do you know why our workforce, why we have the shortages? You talk to economists, they're going to tell you it's because the Gen Xers, my generation, so many of us are retiring in our 50s. We're not working all the way through to our 60s, so that's creating a shortage. And then Gen Z, our 13 to 24, 25-year-olds, are not working. Those of you who have teenagers right now, how many of them are working? Yet think about you. Okay, yes, are you a Gen X parent? Yes, that's why they're working. But most of them aren't working because they're in school, they have travel soccer, they're doing this, and even if they go off to school at college or a trade school, we don't want them working, we want them focusing on school. So it's that shortage of nobody in here should be hiring 13-year-olds. I don't care what state you're in, but roughly whatever state you're in, the legal age, 14, 15, however old it is, to 24, they're not working. This is why we have the shortage. So because we have this shortage, the Gen X people are like, I have my 13-year-old working. I had them working since they were 10 years old. What are you talking about, right? Because we have this shortage, you are gonna have to automate as much as possible. And I know in your industry, you guys, this is like thrown in your face all the time. You're gonna have to automate as much as possible to be able to backfill and buy some time until we figure this workforce shortage out. This is why AI is so important. And listen, some of you are like freaked out about AI. It's been here, we've had it. It's just getting to the point now where it's more affordable, it's easier to use, so don't be scared by it. And no, AI is not gonna replace humans, because AI is only as good as the humans who feed information into it, and only as good as the humans who pull information out of it, okay? And if you can't automate, you have to automate as much as possible. And for the positions that we do have human beings in, you guys are gonna hate this when I tell you this, but you ready? You gotta pay them more money. You gotta pay them more money. The time has come where we have been like underpaying people for way too long. It started in the early 90s. We keep pushing it and pushing it and pushing it. You have people leave. You have one person absorbing the job of 3 people. We have reached our threshold. You have to pay people more money. Now, what do you say to me as a business owner or as a leader in an organization when I say to you, you have to pay your people more money? What do you say to me?
Raise your prices.
Where are we gonna get it, Melissa? Where are we gonna get it? You're gonna like grow money on trees? Where are we gonna get it? And this is, by the way, where my doctorate of business comes in. You ready? I say to you, well, you're either gonna have to increase your revenue streams, raise your prices, sell more product, which by the way is gonna cost money to make that money, or over here, you're gonna have to lower your transactional cost of doing business. Now, I know nothing about metal anything. I know nothing about agriculture. I know very little about manufacturing. But yet these industries bring me in, because you know why? I have no idea what I'm looking at, but I can usually walk in and within 15 minutes tell you 5 or 6 things that you can do to lower your transactional cost of doing business. And some of them you're like, oh, we can't do that. But I guarantee you like 80% of them, you're like, you know, we never thought of that. And it's just because I'm coming in with a fresh perspective, right? And so then, which by the way, do you want me to give you the biggest pointer on how you can lower your transactional cost? Right here. Here's one nugget. You ready? Get rid of performance reviews. Are there any HR people? Usually the HR people like fall out of their chairs when I say that. They're the biggest waste of time and money. Biggest waste of time and money. Now some of you are like, oh, but if we don't have them, like, how do we fire people? You should be firing less than 3% of your people. If you're hiring more than that, if you're firing more than that, you're not hiring the right people in the first place, okay? And why would you take on this very expensive of time and money process for 3% of your people? Let's just figure out something else, right? And then you say to me, well, how do we give our people feedback? Well, the younger generations post something on social media and within 30 seconds they have 300 pieces of feedback. Yet when they come into your workplace, they're only going to get feedback once, maybe twice a year. And that feedback is based on what they've done in the past, not what they need to be doing in the future. It's old school. It's dated. And then some of you say, well, how do we know how to give raises if we don't have performance reviews? Well, I'll tell you right now, the way that we do compensation in America is broken, and we need a millennial to step up and blow it up and disrupt the entire system and rethink how we pay our people. We don't need to tie it to performance reviews. Okay, last thing here. When you think about how to lead your organizations, you better be ready to lead and manage the most diverse workforce you have ever experienced in your lifetime. We have the most diversity in America than we have ever had in the history of America, and it's only going to get more diverse. The workplace environment in America, historically, it is a fact, was designed by men. We were built by founding fathers, okay? We're starting to see a whole lot more women serving in especially manufacturing roles. They're moving up the ranks. We're seeing people of different ethnic backgrounds, different religious beliefs, all of these things coming into your workforce. So your old school way of leading and managing may no longer be relevant on how to manage people who don't think and behave like you. So are you ready for that? And let's even talk about the generations. Like I said, we have five generations in our workforce. We have never had that in the history of America. And so the oldest one are the veterans. There's only 3% of them. And let me tell you something, these 5 generations, they all view the world so differently. They have different mindsets, different preferences, different communication styles, and we have never had more than 3 at any one time in the country. And let's break this down. So when your oldest folks, who are the veterans, they're 75 and older, very few of them, but when they leave, you're going to have a massive knowledge gap. I already told you when the boomers leave, you're going to have a massive leadership gap. I told you when Gen X, they're extremely burned out, they're leaving the workforce, you're going to have an even bigger leadership gap because you don't have anybody to backfill the baby boomers. So guess what's going to happen? Here come the millennials. They're going to get thrusted into leadership positions. They're going to burn the house down. They're going to blow the truck up. They're going to turn the business upside down because they're going to find new and modern relevant ways of doing things. And if you're not on board, they're going to walk you off the plank and they're not going to throw you a life preserver. And if they're not happy and you don't show them that you care about them and you don't embrace this new modern relevant way of doing things, they're going to peace out. You're not going to have a workforce. You're not going to have customers. And then you have Gen Z, that they're very different from millennials, but they're coming in awfully confident that they know how to do this thing called adulting. But the minute that they have to work through a real adult situation, they fall apart. And so my question to you is, does this give you pit stains? Gives me pit stains even just talking about it. And I just spent more than half of our time here this morning just making sure that you understand the landscape. Because what I'm finding is when I come in to work with people, they're naive to the change and what's going on. They're like, oh no, we're good, we're good. And I'm like, look around. And the management and leadership styles are not aligned with what we need to be successful in the future. So here's what I'm going to do with the last 15 minutes of our time. I'm going to give you my top 10 recommendations. Now, here's what I need to tell you. I go through them very quickly. And 1 through 3, I'm going to spend the most of my time on. So if you see that I'm only on number 3, you look at your watch and you're like, holy crap, she only has 7 minutes to go and she's on number 3, don't panic. I'm doing that on purpose. Because think of this as like a pyramid. 1, 2, and 3 are the most important, and if you don't have 1, 2, and 3, you don't have a base, and I can't navigate you through 4 through 10. Okay, so we good? Number 1, mindset is everything. You need to leave here today saying, you know what? I may not like everything Melissa said, and I may not agree with everything Melissa said, but she is on to something, and I probably need to start embracing a more growth, positive mindset that things are different. And if you find yourself saying negative things like, man, these challenges are so overwhelming, I just don't know what I'm going to do about them, and you find yourself being like Eeyore on Winnie the Pooh, where you're like, it's going to rain today, we're never going to make our numbers, things are never going to get better, these damn millennials, Gen Z, they're so young, when are the boomers finally ever going to freaking retire? Like, if you find yourself in like this fixed negative mindset, you need to flip it. And train yourself to flip it. So there's ways that you can say the same point, but in a more growth mindset. So let me give you an example. So here you could say, yeah, these challenges are overwhelming, we're never gonna be able to overcome them. Or you can say, you know what? With challenges comes opportunity. You could say, yeah, this is gonna be a steep climb, but man, I'm gonna put my climbing gear on, I'm up for it, because I can't wait to see what's on the other side of that mountain. Now, some of you are looking at me like, really, Melissa? I promise you, this crap works. Like, if you can train your brain that every time you say something negative or you have this negative fixed mindset and you force yourself to start thinking differently about it, you're going to retrain your brain. And if you guys work together, hold each other accountable. So if you hear somebody making that negative comment, say to them, flip it. Flip it and make them say the same comment but in a more growth mindset, and you're going to retrain your brain. Okay? Number 2, if you want to successfully lead and manage in the future, you have to be self-aware. When I say self-aware, you need to know who you are. What motivates you? What are your preferences? Who do you work well with? Who do you not work well with? Are you a morning person? Are you a night person? What do you like to do? What do you not like to do? You need to figure out who you are before you can start leading and managing anybody, especially leading and managing somebody who's different than you. You need to know who you are, and you especially need to be dialed into this thing called emotional intelligence. Now, some of you are like, emotion what? There's no crying in baseball, Melissa. You like check it out the door. Like, don't tell, emotions? Yeah, because you're gonna need this to navigate the future. So let me tell you what this is. The first bucket is, how aware are you of your emotions? Now, some of you are very simple people and you have like 4 emotions, and that's it. Go deeper. Let's talk about it. Are you angry, sad, happy, frustrated, intimidated, overwhelmed? I mean, I can go through a whole list. Pull up your emoji page on your phone and you'll see all the emojis, and there's a different emotion attached to each and every one of them. So how aware are you of your emotions? But then more importantly, how aware are you of other people's emotions? So if you have somebody in front of you who's crying or somebody in front of you who's angry, can you pick up on those social cues? And then the next bucket is, how well do you manage your emotions? So when you're really angry, can you bring yourself down? When you're really overwhelmed, can you manage that? And when you have that really angry person in front of you, can you diffuse that person? When you have that really sad person in front of you, do you know how to console them? And then the third bucket of emotional intelligence is that, how well do you use these things called emotions to manage life, make decisions, solve problems, manage your stress? So thinking about your decision-making process that you have, do you have too much emotion in making your decisions? Do you not factor in enough emotion when making your decisions? You need to find that like just right. And here's what's super cool about emotional intelligence. You can develop it. You're not born with it. You can develop it. So right now, I want you to think about the best person you've ever worked with and worked for. Everybody right now, in your head, think about the best person you've ever worked with or worked for. Can you think about that person? If you can't, get my contact information at the end. We'll do career counseling. I'll find you a new job, and you'll be happy, okay? But best person you've ever worked with or worked for. This could be a coach, a teacher, a supervisor, a colleague. What were some of the attributes of that person? Holler it out to me. Say it again. Open-minded. Give me another one.
Positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement. Patient. Say it again. Empathy. They respected you. They're compassionate. They're straightforward. They had a sense of humor. They listen. Humble. Love that one. Intelligent. Competent. Okay, now ready? Think about the worst person you've ever worked with and worked for. Isn't it funny how fast you can think of that person? That person like came immediately to your head. What were some of the characteristics or attributes of that person? Holler it out. It's very therapeutic. Here's your chance. Okay, we're being recorded, so I'm not going to repeat what you said, but it was a cuss word, okay? A jerk. What else? Negative. Not smart. Unethical.
He told you, he basically conveyed that I'm smarter than you.
Arrogant. They're smarter than you, right? Angry. Wishy-washy. Can't make decisions. Yeah. Okay, so now, first of all, you as managers and leaders, I want you to think about what words would people use to describe you. If you left here today and you went back to your businesses and you asked your people around you, hey, what are 3 words you would use to describe me? What 3 words would they use to describe you? Okay, number 1. And then number 2, every single one of these words, if I had flip charts here and I had all the positive words and all the negative words, I can map every single one of them to emotional intelligence. It's the emotional maturity, it's the professional maturity, so this is why this is critical. So if some of you are like, I don't need emotions, there's no emotions. Yeah, you do. You do. And you're probably more on the negative list than the positive list, okay? And so when I think about those 3 words, go back and ask your people those 3 words, because guess what? That's your leadership brand. That's what people are saying about you when you're not in the room. And you got to think about your brand and think about the 3 words you would use versus the 3 words they would use, and how do they compare? And so with these 3 words, you want to write this brand statement. And let me show you mine. This was mine. My 3 words were passionate, internally motivated, which should be hyphenated, so that's the second word, impact. So I'm walking around thinking this is my brand. I'm a passionate, internally motivated professional driven by impact. Yeah, buddy. Well, when I asked them their 3 words, this is what they came up with. Obnoxious, overly confident, stubborn, difficult to work with. And so I had to do some work to make sure that my perception of myself and the message I wanted to send was consistent with how others were viewing me. Because at the end of the day, perception is reality. And then I want to ask you, as leaders and managers, okay, let's say you come up with your 3 words and you're feeling good about it. So I had this one woman I was working with who was trying to be a plant manager, and her words were fun, funny, and compassionate. She went out, she asked the people she worked with, and they all said, yeah, Tammy is fun, friendly, compassionate, funny, humorous, all these things. And we're like, okay, great. But I said, Tammy, when you think plant manager, what are the 3 words you think of? Smart, driven, analytical. Okay, Tammy, what do we need to do to make sure that people not only think of you as fun, friendly, and funny, but also smart, driven, and analytical? Flip it. So you all, as leaders and managers, need to be thinking about how others view you. And if you're viewed as the jerk, guess what? You're the jerk. And is that really how you want others to view you? And how can you behave differently so people don't think that of you? What is your brand? Okay, we're going to skip through that. The third one is you need to learn about others. Once you know about you, and you know who you are, and you know why you behave the way you do, you understand why you have the lens that you have to see the world. Because here's the thing, the way that you all are behaving as adults, as managers and leaders, is because what you experienced as children. Who were your role models? You have a paradigm on how you expect yourself to behave. Okay, why do you behave that way? Let's break that down. And then now you need to go learn about others, and do not ever assume that you know what your employees want. So here was an image that I put on my LinkedIn because I was getting tired of people saying, oh yeah, we know what people want and what would make people want to come work for us. We feed them free Chick-fil-A on Fridays. We put beanbag chairs in the break room. Do you know how many places I've gone to that I walk into their break room and they're like, yeah, we have darts and we're so cool. And I'm like, you totally missed the point. This is what people want. And so sitting here right now, I want you to think to yourself, if I were to come into your organizations, how would you do if I gave you a quiz on this? Number 1, do you pay your people well? Number 2, do you mentor and coach your people? Number 3, do you challenge them? 4, if I came in and asked your people, when is your next promotion coming, what would they say? Or if I asked them, do you know what you need to do to get promoted, what would they say? 5, are you involving them in the decisions? Are you asking them for their input? And when you ask them for your input, you actually do something with it and not just disregard it? Are you appreciating them the way they want to be appreciated or the way you want to be appreciated? Because most people want to be appreciated more than recognized. Are you trusting them? Do they trust you? Are you empowering them? Are you valuing them? Are you respecting them? Do they feel respected? This is the secret sauce, folks, right here. One size does not fit all. You need to learn your people and you need to adjust your leadership and management style to them. Okay, so now we're going to go through 4 through 10 very quickly because it's very surface level. Because you have such a diverse workforce, you're going to have to develop advanced communication skills. You need to learn how your people want to be communicated with. You have to communicate with compassion. You have to communicate with transparency, and you can never over-communicate. Some of you may have communication styles that you're like, okay, well, I don't want to communicate it until I have all of the information. If you are waiting to share information, your people are always going to assume the worst. You're better off telling them, this is what I know now. It may change, but as I get more information, I'll share it with you. You have to communicate your feedback, and some of you are like, well, I give them a paycheck. Is that not like good enough feedback? Like you're getting a paycheck, so you're doing a good job. No, they want to hear that you're doing a good job. They want constructive feedback as to what they can do better, And they want you to clearly communicate their expectations. And so many times I work with people who say to me, yeah, I get so frustrated because these younger folks, they text me that they're not coming into work. And that like makes me so mad because I want them to call me. I said, okay, why do you want them to call you? Well, because I need to know if they're really sick. And I'm like, okay, you not only have a communication issue, you have a trust issue. And what does it matter if they're sick or not? They have PTO. It's part of their compensation package. It is not your business as to why they're not coming into work. But if you have a preferred communication method, you need to communicate it to them and say, hey, I want you to call me, but man, oh man, you better have a good why. You better have a good why when you explain it to them, and you better make sure that your team knows that those are your preferences. Okay? Number 5, you learned today that everybody's burned out. You kind of knew it, but now I just stated it to you. You better learn how to manage your burnout, and more importantly, you need to learn how to manage the burnout of others. How do you help your team members and your employees diffuse their burnout? How are you showing people that you appreciate them? And so, are you familiar with the 5 love languages?
Yes.
If you're not, you gotta learn about it. It basically tells you that people tend to give love the way that they want love received. So you need to figure out the love appreciation languages of your team members. Is it through words? Do they want to be told that they're doing a good job? Is it time? Do they want time with you or time off? Is it acts of service? So you're like, hey, I'll take your workload today, or hey, I'll do this for you. Is it gifts? They want gift cards, they want trophies. What do they want? Now, in the workplace, there's no touching, unless you're married or related. So I'm gonna replace touching with food. I'm Italian, I'm from New Jersey, I love food. So that's my love language, is food. So while I'm rounding out 6 through 10, because I'm gonna do it in under 2 minutes, I want you all right now to take out your phones, if you have them, and send a text to somebody right now. And I know, gentlemen in the room, this may be hard for you, but do it. I promise you, there'll be a payoff. Text somebody right now and tell him, she, they, whoever, that you appreciate them while I finish 6 through 10, because it's gonna be really fun to watch some of the responses you get back, okay? Number 6, you have to be a tech-savvy humanist. Right now, people are so quick to throw technology as a solution for everything. Before you invest in technology, you need to stop and think, how is this gonna help my people, hurt my people, and impact my people? Number 7, you have to be socially responsible. You have to do the right things, and people have to trust you. If I came into your workplace right now and I said, hey, do your team members trust you? What would they say? And then if I asked your team members, do you feel like your leader or manager trusts you? What would they say? Many organizations right now are having trust issues. And David Horsager, who wrote the book on 8 Pillars of Trust, let me go back to that screen just in case you want to see it. He talks about the 8 different things you need to do to build trust. It's an awesome book. He's an awesome speaker. Okay? Number 8, you have to be innovative and adaptable. How quickly can you pivot? How quickly can you change? And man, oh man, if you are in a management and leadership role, I highly recommend that you listen to a podcast, read a book, or go to a training on change management. Because the only thing constant is change. And if you think you can come in and implement new technology or a new process or a new system without employing change management principles, you're swimming upstream, okay? Number 9, you're gonna have to develop advanced problem solving skills, because your problems are only gonna get harder and you're gonna have to solve them faster. And to do that, you better be data savvy, because we now have the ability to collect all this data. Do you know what to do with it? Data can tell you any story you want it to tell. You need to educate yourself to know, what do I do with this data? What questions do I ask? And how can I make sure that I'm not being told a story that's not true? Because data can tell you any story you want it to tell. Okay? Did anybody get a fun text message back? Those of you who texted somebody, did anybody get something back? I had one lady, she sent it, and her son was like, Mom, are you day drinking again? And then I had another one who was like, I love you, emoji, emoji, emoji. And then I had another one who was like, what did you do wrong and what do you need from me? It's fun. If you get a fun one, I want to hear it. Okay, so let me close here. Leadership is a team sport. But wait, we're in Atlanta, Georgia, so we absolutely do not want a picture of Auburn football. We want UGA, go Dogs! I worked for the University of Georgia, okay? Take a look at this picture and tell me, how many coaches do you see in the picture? Anywhere 5 to 6 coaches. This is the future of leadership, y'all. If you are going to be in a leadership and management role, you better start building your team. Because gone are the days that you have one figurehead who's the only leader. And if you are the senior leader, you better hire people who are smarter than you. You better hire people who are better than you in every way possible. Because leadership is a team sport. The problems are too hard. Business is moving too fast. The diversity is so large. You're going to need as many people as possible on your team to help you lead and manage your organization into the future. Now, if you ever watch University of Georgia football, our head coach is Kirby Smart, and he's very passionate. And he runs out on the field, and he yells, and he screams, and he's yelling at the refs. And what do you think happens when Kirby Smart runs out on the field? They get a penalty flag, because you can't do that. So this is Coach Mike, and Coach Mike is a strength coach, but on game day, Coach Mike's job is the get back coach, coach. Get back, coach, get back, coach. And his job is to pull Kirby back. Think about your role on your leadership and management teams. What is your job? Now, some of you, it may be to pull your leader back, but in most of your cases, having worked with your industry, your job may be is to push your leadership forward. Because you guys may have analysis paralysis. Should we not? Should we not? What does the data say? Maybe this will work. I don't know. And you may need to be that leader who pushes your person forward, and your leader needs to be open to that. Leadership is a team sport. Okay, so this is all I have for you. Again, you probably felt like I just hosed you down with that fire hose. If you take a picture of this QR code, but also METALCON's going to get a copy of my slides, and they'll also have a copy of my handout. It'll give you the handout that gives you everything I told you today. It'll also give you a generational diversity handout. It'll give you a burnout quiz. It'll give you a trust quiz. There are all kinds of tools. Let me make sure I'm not standing in the way. There's all kinds of tools you can download for free. I'm not going to use this for marketing. I'm an academic. I don't do that. Feel free to use anything and everything on this page to help you develop your management and leadership skills. If you like this topic, follow me on social media, and if you have questions, want to talk with me, call me, text me, email me, come hang out with me at breakfast, and we can talk more about it. So thank you for your time this morning, and enjoy the rest of your expo.